Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, a gaping ethics hole. Also, the V-Team takes a look at DMV closings. And Mike Hubbard's legal defense is starting to look like it's one bearded lady short of a circus. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
The Voice of Alabama Politics with your host, Bill Brett, and the V-Team with Claire Austin, Susan Britt, Jack Campbell, Baron Coleman, Charlana Spencer, and special reports with Jonathan Barbie. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This week, the Alabama Ethics Commission blew a big, fat raspberry at the Attorney General. The Attorney General had asked, along with the DAs, that they revise or reconsider the opinion on Patricia Todd. They did it, but they did it in such a way that they really took a swipe, Baron, at the Attorney General. What do you think?
I thought it was absolutely disrespectful, foolish in many ways. They got adverse with the Attorney General's office merely for the Attorney General's office daring to question their getting in the way of an investigation, is what it seemed like to me. The Attorney General apparently 34 days after the Patricia Todd opinion was initially issued, asked for a reconsideration, and they thumbed their nose at it and said, no, you were 4 days late. We're not going to listen to you. We don't care what you have to say. We're going to revise our opinion ever so slightly, and we're still going to allow her to do, Patricia Todd, to do what we gave her permission to do the first time, which is essentially to serve as a lobbyist legislator.
I mean, Claire, this is not new news, but the fact that they
Have opened the gap.
Yeah, and they looked at the Attorney General's office and said, you don't have any say, buddy. I mean, that's outrageous, I would think.
It's egregious.
It is.
I mean, it really is. There's no question.
Susan, you were there. What was your impression?
Basically, that the Ethics Commission had just shut out the Attorney General and said, you have no place here. The Attorney General and the DAs, in the letter that they sent, requested that they be able to review the opinion and make comments before they ruled. They dismissed the letter for the 30-day thing, turned right around and ruled on the opinion without ever looking over at the Attorney General.
I mean, one of the crazy things is Luther Strange's people had to stand in line with us, the press, to get the opinion, to even read it. I mean, that was blatant disrespect.
Well, it's out of control, and it is blatant disrespect, and it's out of control. And the fact that your top law enforcement officers, the Attorney General of the state, and then your DAs in all the counties, and they're the ones that have subpoena powers, and they go to the courts and do these things and put bad people away. That for the Ethics Commission to do this is just out of control, and these people are all politically appointed people anyway.
Yeah, and I use this, they look like a Soviet-era troika, sitting up there like the elitist. I mean, it was just, the optics, which is one of, were just stunning.
Well, you're not going to get put on there if you're a poor person, because you got to get appointed by a governor, lieutenant governor, and different folks.
Yeah, well, we're looking at some of those folks. It's not just poor, it's how they got rich.
Well, that's part of it. The other thing is, the question you got to ask yourself is, what is the purpose of the Alabama Ethics Commission?
Well, that's a good question.
What is their purpose? Is their purpose to aid and abet criminal behavior on the part of Alabama's legislature? Or is their purpose to try to draw a very big, bright line and keep people from even getting close to the legal line, making clear, okay, here's what you can and can't do. What they've become is a way to get around the law. Right. They are issuing opinions saying, okay, I understand what you're wanting to do is not exactly legal. Let's call it this. Let's say this. Let's assume you're doing it this way. And that way you won't be subject, and our letter, our opinion will be fine.
It was interesting. The room was full of attorneys. Ted Haas was there representing Patricia Todd and HRC. He's also HRC's lobbyist.
Contract lobbyist, right?
Contract lobbyist. It was also interesting to note that Augusta Dow was there, representing Mike Hubbard.
Right.
And we know why Mike has an interest, right,
Yes,
Susan?
certainly we do. Certainly we do.
I just think, I've talked to a couple of lawmakers over the last few days, and I think we're going to see legislation coming down hard on these characters. I mean, hard legislation says if you're not going to do your job, we're going to do it for you, and we don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
Well, they really could do away with the whole ethics commission.
Right.
They should.
Well, they should. I mean, why are we spending this money
Right.
for a commission that helps these people get around the law? This
they're
is
only
not
doing
what
is
it's
skirting
supposed to be.
I mean, $1.5 million could go to the Attorney General's office, and he can set up an
and the
office and
DAs.
write
Right.
opinion.
And they just thumb their nose at the top cop in the state.
We already have an opinions division in the Attorney General's
Yes,
office.
we certainly do.
They're set up to write opinions. That's
Right.
what they do.
And take it and move it over there. Give the $100 million $5. Let them do it.
Absolutely.
And the point is, opinion is just an opinion. It's not the law.
Well, some of these opinions, though, they use them to paper over the fact, like they did with Patricia Todd. I mean, the truth is, Patricia Todd worked for 4 or 6 months on pay from a principal that employs lobbyists. According to the strict interpretation of the law, the strict letter of the law, that's a criminal offense.
It's a felony.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I love Patricia Todd. She's a dear woman, good legislator, but she was used. She's either green or a fool or both. She's not crooked.
By
But-
the speaker.
By the speaker. Yeah.
Absolutely.
By the speaker.
He's
In order to abate his,
Yeah.
aid his
Yeah.
case.
I mean, what's
Right.
Ted Hospin and Patricia Todd doing going in and out of the speaker's office during special session?
That was about a budget.
Right.
Yeah. They're
Well-
working on their case.
There's a guy, and we talked about him last week, who wants to replace Mike Hubbard. And we got about 2 minutes. I want to get to this, though. This guy, Representative Phil Williams, this is a real Alabama rags to riches story, Claire. I was fascinated by him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think he's a great guy, and I think he would be a good statesman. I think he'd be a great leader and a great speaker. And, and once again, I think I said it before, he has come from rags to riches. He's made his money the good, honest way. So we need a speaker that doesn't need money and is not going to try to rob the coffers and become lobbyists and everything else.
But a fascinating guy, isn't he, Susan?
He is. He's also a musician. Has a band named The Reps, I believe
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
And has been for a while. Has a son he absolutely adores. And he's just a good lawmaker. I've watched him for 4 years.
Yeah.
He has no interest in power. He has no interest in enriching himself. He just wants to do what is right and good. And I really respect that. in him.
Well, anybody that's built 2 multi-million-dollar companies and sold them without, that's pretty good. Real quick, another thing that General Strange this week brought home the bacon, so to speak, in the BP oil settlement case. Susan, what happened?
He brought home $1 billion. $1 billion with a B.
Right.
And it's going to be divided up. There's $950 million of that's going to the general fund. $50 million is going to be paid per year from 16 to 18. $53 million is going to be paid yearly from 2019 to 2030. And then $50 million is going to Gulf State Park.
What about that, Barron?
And $10 million to the AG's office for their legal fees.
Good. They need some money.
They need some money, definitely.
They need the money, the park does not.
Does not. We're going to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and analysis. Thank you for watching.
The V is sponsored by Spot On Strategies Group.
Sadly, this happens too often in families with autistic children.
First nightmare, their child wanders off, disappears, and is nowhere to be found.
Where her body was found just a couple hours ago.
An autistic boy wanders away from home and dies.
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. For 2 years now, the Attorney General's office has been what I politely call taking a big stick to Victoryland. You know, last week, Judge Shashi ruled in favor of Victoryland, saying that the machines were legal, that the constitutional amendment, 744, meant they could play electronic bingo, and he said, give them back their machines. Attorney General Luther Strange, who we think the world of, is not wanting to do any of that. Why? I don't get it, Barron. It doesn't make any sense. Luther said this thing was over with the Indians. Why is he now holding up Milton?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I've tried to look at this every which angle that people are willing to talk to me about. I've asked a lot of questions to a lot of people, and I can't get a firm answer on why does the Attorney General's office feel compelled to appeal, to keep pushing this. This is a judge who was appointed by the Alabama Supreme Court to decide this issue. It's presumably going to now be appealed to the Alabama Supreme Court. The only remotely satisfactory answer that I've gotten was that, you know, that first appeal, you almost, as an Attorney General, you have to take. But there's no rule that says you have to take it. There's no statute, no constitutional amendment that says you're required to take it. It's just been common practice that if the Attorney General loses at the trial court, they always appeal at least once.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you, but, Claire, what do you get?
Well, I mean, the issue's just been out here and out and about and floundering around off and on for 5 or 6 years. And, I mean, okay, so when they take it to the Supreme Court, what's the timetable, Barron?
It's going to be a couple of 3 years, I would guess. I mean, a year or two at least, if not 2 or 3.
I mean, we've spent $6 million, Susan, on this deal. I mean, the taxpayers have.
Absolutely. And meanwhile, there are other casinos out there operating. The 11th Circuit said that the Indians could operate these machines. They're the same machines. If they can, by IGRA law, the Indian regulations, they can't operate a machine that's not legal in the state. So if the 11th Circuit says it's legal legal for everybody.
Well, maybe they don't want all these other entities, all across the state, those like Green Track and all those places would be able to open up as well.
Well, they are open.
They are open. That's the thing.
And in Shashi's ruling, he says that they have to be closed. If they're going to keep Milton out, they have to close them too.
An interesting thing I've noticed in every one of these rulings, they never mention Houston County, and they're still jamming away in Dothan. They're
playing down there.
Playing down there.
Yeah, and in fact, when we went
I
back,
checked on Wednesday.
Well, in fact, in Shashi's ruling, it says that since he first started hearing this case, more casinos have opened.
We thought they were closed, but they are.
I think it's just a different form of.
Nope,
it's not.
it's not.
There is one that's different where they're playing.
I stand
among them.
corrected.
There is one.
There's one where they're playing on computer terminals
right.
instead of the machines.
Okay.
And they have to yell bingo, don't they?
They have to say bingo before they get their money at the cage. I mean, this is so absurd. This is absolutely absurd. Meanwhile, you have the Indian casinos, again, not knocking them. They've been decent corporate citizens for the state and good neighbors. But there are 3 massive Indian casinos playing the exact same type of bingo, bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars annually.
Well, it's just not fair.
Some of those machines actually have Victoryland stickers on them, where they were at Victoryland at one time.
You know, the interesting thing is when Milton McGregor got his CA, the Indians were playing in double-wide trailers.
Well, particularly up here, up there in Wetumpka, they were.
And now they got these
Taj Mahal.
massive, Las
good for
Vegas.
them.
I'm happy for them too, but
Absolutely.
if the only people that's being aided by what the Attorney General is doing is the Porch Creek.
That's it.
I mean, Robbie McGee has gone on television and said, we're happy with the status quo.
Absolutely.
Because they're bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, the problem is it's just not fair that they are singling out and that Milton McGregor and Victoryland are the only ones that are not being able to operate at all.
That's the big problem.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and it's just,
And Shashi was disgusted at that. When he first, when they put the numbers up on the screen that day in the courtroom, and I think you were there, you could see the disgust in his face. He could not take his eyes off of that screen at the difference between how many days of Milton had been open and everybody else. I mean, he was just shocked.
well, and I don't think this is why this current Attorney General is doing this, but we know this thing goes back to Bob Riley and that bunch, and they have just wanted to ruin Milton McGregor. I don't know what that's all about, but just take John Kakelman. All right, he's the guy that's prosecuting this thing. All right, he's the big dog now, John Kakelman. I mean, this guy was tutored by Sonny Reagan.
Well, that's a little scary.
That was his mentor.
Yeah, he was at the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office before that, trying high-profile cases and crimes. Then he went to the Attorney General's office and was put in this division with Sonny Reagan, and he's been under the tutelage of Sonny Reagan since.
He's a Reagan guy. We know about Sonny Reagan, and Andrew Brasher, one of the brightest attorneys in the state. You know, before he came to the Attorney General's office, he worked for Bradley Arant, and guess what? He did at Bradley Arant, showed up at a bingo trial or two.
Right.
I mean, so you've got these guys that are coming from a different camp.
Yeah.
It just, I'm sorry, it smells.
Well, maybe the Attorney General's office and the higher-ups needs to take a closer look at this.
Well, politically, this is suicidal for.
I don't know. That's what I don't understand. I mean, I've tried to analyze it as a lawyer legally. Politically, I do not understand what Luther Strange is doing. It's the best argument I've heard yet that Luther Strange does not intend to seek the governor's office.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard,
that's the best argument, is that look what he's doing to Milton. He's obviously not looking to be governor.
I've heard from some big mules that said, you know, Luther is burying himself because we're not going to help him at all.
Right.
Because they want this thing to go away. They want it to stop.
Right. Well, it's time for there to be some ending to this. This has gone on for way too long.
Real quick, I want to get to the fact that Becky Garrison, Tea Party favorite, is running against Martha Robi, who basically has one of the more liberal voting records of any Republican in the U.S. House. I mean, Becky's formidable.
She is. Becky is not someone that I would want to try to run against. I mean, she's pretty stout. She's pretty strong. She's got a message, and that she doesn't waver from. Martha seems to kind of waver from time to time on her opinions.
I mean, I like Martha, but
I do too.
But Becky's tough, you know.
Yeah, she's going to be a very tough opponent for Martha Robi, and you know, Becky's been out there in the forefront. She's been, she's testified before Congress. She's been on national news. She's going to be a very serious candidate, and I think she has a tremendous amount of following. All throughout the state.
Both women are honest, decent, smart, funny, friendly, nice people. They view the world philosophically differently.
Absolutely.
And there's going to be the district is going to have an honest difference, conservative or moderate.
We deserve a choice, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, one last question here, and we got about 15, 20 seconds. Can she raise the money, and is this the anti-incumbent year?
Anti-incumbent year, yes.
Yes. Can she raise the money? Yes.
Yeah, money won't be a problem.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Sadly, this happens too often in families with autistic children.
Worst nightmare, their child wanders off, disappears, and is nowhere to be found.
Where her body was found just a couple hours ago.
An autistic boy wanders away from home and dies.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Welcome, Jack.
We're so glad to have you.
How y'all doing?
We're doing well.
Glad to have you sit beside me.
I know it, Clary.
Interestingly enough, there's been a furor, a lot of chatter, a lot of discussion about the closing of the 31 DMV driver's license offices across the state. Claire, there's a lot of folks, it's primarily in the black belt and black communities, and Bentley's taking some heat on this.
Yeah, he has, and it's become a national issue. And Jesse Jackson was in town in Montgomery, and the Secretary of State and them met with them. And I think Barron said this last week. I mean, the legislators knew what they were doing. The legislators, for the viewers, they're the ones that passed the budget. Then the governor just has to implement it. So then he's getting all the black eyes. because he doesn't have a vote over there when it comes to passing the budget. But, you know, I mean, I know that it's raised a lot of concern, particularly in the Black Belt, but that, you know, the problem is geographically that's where the numbers are. But
Yes, rural communities. I mean,
Right.
Jack, I mean, that's kind of how
Yeah, it is. But, you know,
out.
and then Terry Sewell wants to take issue with it, saying, now I'm upset they're closing, believe me, but her comment that it's disenfranchising voters just isn't true.
No,
Because you don't
gosh.
go to the driver's license bureau to get a photo ID. You get them through the Secretary of State. They have that traveling van. You can go to the Board of Registrars. You don't have to go to a driver's license to get a photo ID.
I did think it was a little.
well, she's just throwing that out there.
Yeah,
you know,
but
trying
But it's
to.
going to cost a lot of money in litigation if it
Yeah, well-
goes anywhere.
Well, I tell you, and again, the governor, though, he kind of lashed out at Terry Sewell. I don't think that was the wisest strategy either. I mean, you know, it's gotten, like all
it's
issues that
kinda got
become racial,
twisted.
it gets out of hand.
But I mean, from what I understand from talking to the Secretary of State's office, that they had a very good meeting with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I mean, he wasn't 100% satisfied, but he knows what they're trying to do.
Well, you know, and again, Republicans in general have been labeled with the racist thing, but I don't think Spencer Collier or any of these guys are racist by any stretch of the imagination. Another thing that happened with the governor's office this week, or in the past week or so, last week I guess it was, Seth Hammett left the post. I mean, he was only an interim, but the interesting thing is they haven't replaced him.
They haven't replaced him, and I don't think they're going to. I mean, Bentley's not listening to any advisors anyway, so why refill the post? And he didn't just resign; his contract ran out.
Right? Yeah, that was.
It wasn't just that he resigned and said, "I'm throwing up my hands and going."
I
His
think that's a
contract
very.
was- yeah.
I think that's a very important fact. Right?
Right.
You know, he was there on loan from his corporation, and was there for a year.
Which is the on loan is also trying to be addressed in this Todd ruling as well.
Yeah, well, you know, Jack, and I mean, but Bentley's got 2 junior staffers. I mean, good guys, but your chief of staff, if you're going to get anything done.
I know. I will say for Seth, though, he's probably the most relieved man in Alabama that his contract ran out. But no, I think it's silly. I think you need a central figure,
Right.
an authoritative figure that runs the show. And they're going to have these 2 youthful people, and they're good folks. You know, we all know them, but I think it's silly. I don't know who Bentley listens to. Well, we think we know, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
it's just
let's hope and pray that he listens to David Burns, his general counsel, because he has some gray hair behind him, and as the general counsel, he can step up and probably take a different role and help him.
You know, I think they
different-
should hire Baron Coleman. He gets some things started.
He'd straighten it out in a hurry.
be the most controversial gubernatorial administration
The shortest,
in history.
shortest person in that
Yeah, but
position for a length
also
of time.
keep in mind, you know, this is his second term, so a head honcho and somebody leading the pack is not as important as it is in the first term, but still, he just needs somebody with some
Well, to
seasoning.
me, it's just one of those things. It's like, boy, I mean, because they got off to a bad start. I mean, this taxes and all that
the flag
stuff.
and,
Of course,
and now the driver's license office.
And I, you know, Seth Hammett's a great guy. I mean, anybody that's ever met him really is fond of him. But I had a problem with Power South paying his salary the whole time he was here.
that needs to be fixed.
And
has
I'm
got
sure
to
the
be.
ethics, this
What
ethics
ethics
commission
commission?
probably wave a green flag, but
What is it you say is worthless as a what?
on a boar hog? Yeah, that too.
Well, but, you know, they've always done it. Those little guy who was at the Maynard Cooper law firm working, I mean, they've...
Yeah.
It's
you
going
know-
to stop, though.
Well, I mean, at least for, I mean, I have a problem with the law firms because they got multiple clients across the board. You got Power South, that's just one entity. But when you get these other folks, that's a little bit different.
It's a slippery slope. You know, we all know that.
And they're greasing the tracks right now with the Todd opinion.
So we've got Mike Hubbard. I mean, his new legal strategy is just, you know, short of one bearded lady as to be a circus.
Well,
I mean,
first
it's
of all,
crazy.
it's dangerous and it certainly is egregious because if you look at all the names on that list.
Yeah, I mean, 40 witnesses, Susan. Everybody under the sun, including our own Baron Coleman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you've got Dick Brubaker's on there, Cam Ward, Jabba Wagner.
Okay, but
I mean,
let's put the hay down where the goats can get it. Why are they putting all those names on there, Jack?
Stall tactic, take time. Half of them or more have nothing to do with Mike Hubbard and his ethics charges.
Or to embarrass the judge. In the headlines in Lee County, can't you see it? You know, Mike Hubbard tries to bring 40 witnesses, but Judge Walker tells him he can't have 35. So poor Mike, he can't have all his witnesses.
Yeah, well, some of
He
these.
doesn't want some. I can assure you he doesn't want Baron Coleman. I can assure you he doesn't want Jessica Garrison. There's plenty of people he doesn't want. There's an ulterior
When is
motive.
this on October 26th?
Yeah, I mean,
Well, they could take all the state fair equipment over to Auburn and set up tents and pony shows.
You know,
John Archibald's on the list.
Yeah.
This is scare tactics.
Why am I
Immediate.
not on the list? I'm a little hurt, really, to tell you the truth.
You should be. I'm shocked.
I mean, I gotta tell you.
You verklempt. Just a little verklempt.
They know how to cut a guy to the bone. You know? I mean, Archibald's on, Barron's on. What am I, chopped liver?
Would that
Jack?
silence you if you were a witness? Would that be able to?
You think they've got a snowball's chance in hell of keeping my mouth shut?
No, I don't.
Well, listen, we got
But it's
about a
interesting.
minute.
I mean, really, let's look at the analogy of why they're really doing this.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
I mean, why?
It's a side. I think it's a sideshow, and it's also to intimidate.
Right.
Get Archibald to quit writing. Jabbo. Ooh, you don't want to go down that road with Jabbo.
One thing that I wanted to mention real quick, and I don't have much time, but one of the things that I don't think y'all said in the first segment was about the fact that at the Ethics Commission that y'all went to the other day, public input was not solicited or welcomed.
No,
it
they
was
didn't want it.
shut
That
down.
really stinks.
It was shut
That's
down from the
bad.
very
We
beginning.
pay their, you remember Tom Albritton, we pay your salary and you need to have public input. That's
wrong.
They got that across real fast. There will be no public comment at all.
We're going to have to leave it right there. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You can catch fresh stories every day on alreporter.com. Like us on Facebook, watch us on YouTube, and of course, come be with us every Sunday for The V.
Can't you just see Barron in the governor's office?
Oh Lord.
He'd have to get a whole new staff.
He'd burn some skulls, baby.
He would, yeah.
burning down the house.